Hey YouTube, not so Slim Jim coming to you with an update video covering a few things that we've been following here in the channel for the last month or so. And let's start with the elephant in the room. Let's talk about David Chipman. That's right, Mr. The guys in Waco shot down helicopters with 50 caliber machine guns. Mr. Let's hide our pistols behind cans of tuna for the zombie apocalypse instead of putting them in, I don't know, a safe where they belong. And the guy who thinks that basically all gun owners are a bunch of Neanderthals that need to be thrown in jail and everything's a machine gun. Well, after he barely squeaked by through the basic nominations and he was going to be put onto the floor for a vote, they did some talking to some of the Democrats and independents, and they basically said, yeah, this guy's a complete freaking idiot. And like the majority of bumbling Biden's entire presidency, where everything seems to turn to crap because, well, let's face it, he's a damn idiot, the David Chipman nomination has been withdrawn. That's right, David Chipman. I am sorry, but you're the worst. You gotta go, guy. Go ahead and climb behind that can of tuna on your shelf and hide with your little pistol that you're hiding because nobody wants you. You're an idiot. Go away. So luckily he's out of the picture, so that's one less anti-gun idiot we have to worry about, because Lord knows we have enough of them at the ATF trying to call everything, including shoestrings, and a hole that's literally not even on the AR receiver, but just a pencil marker saying it's a machine gun. We got to deal with that as it is. We don't need you running around calling everything a gun and everything a short barrel shotgun, so just go away. Next, we have the case of Daniel Parry. I'm sure you remember Daniel Parry. He was a gentleman who was driving Uber down in Austin. He was a Army sergeant, active duty outside of Fort Hood, right where I live. And at the same time, there was an Air Force veteran, a gentleman named Garrett Foster, who was a Antifa BLM LARPing ginger, who decided he wanted to carry his AK-47. Well, somewhere in that evening, the two of them met, and Garrett Foster decided to point his AK-47 at Daniel Parry. And unfortunately, in the process of doing so, Daniel Parry found his life to be in risk and shot Garrett Foster. Now, the police had found that it was a case of self-defense, and because of that, they did not charge Daniel Parry with a crime, because underneath Texas law, what had happened that night, they, like I said, found to be self-defense. Now, recently, the new socialist, I kid you not, Democratic Socialist DA that came in after this had happened decided he did not like how this was going. So he decided, hey, I'm going to bring this back up, bring it in front of a grand jury, and we are going to charge Daniel Parry and get him indicted underneath the grand jury. Now, the big issue about this is when they brought in the original detective, which was Detective David Fugit, hopefully I'm not pronouncing that wrong, who found that it was a self-defense case because of the evidence that was there. He explained and directly told David Fugit that he is, during his presentation, to only give a limited amount of information and to leave out certain aspects of his investigation to the grand jury when giving his presentation. Now, we all know that whenever you are giving as a defense, or I'm sorry, as a prosecution, the prosecution has to give the best evidence they can in a defense of a team. You can't leave information out. You can't say, oh, well, I'm only going to give half the information. The people who are trying to prosecute have to give the best information they can in defense of the person that they are trying to prosecute. That is state and federal law. Well, obviously the DA doesn't really care about state or federal law. He only cares about punishing white man bad. I don't like white guy with gun. White man bad. We must throw him in prison to show how woke I am. Which I'll get to something interesting at the end of the video about that. Well, so of course, because this information was limited, they ended up indicting him and finding that they can, in fact, charge him with murder. Now, there was a motion put down to have this case thrown out because of these individual facts, but a judge denied these motions and said, no, I'm not going to do it. I really don't care. Now, there's additional motions filed for DA Garza for manipulating the grand jury. Now, this is kind of an interesting one because the actual detective who had to do this presentation, and the original one, who, by the way, is still a detective, who did the investigation on Daniel Parry, wrote an affidavit to the judge and to the judicial system down in Austin saying what the DA doing was not only unethical, but it's illegal, and the fact that he told me to leave information out of a grand jury hearing. And he sent that up to the judge overhearing this, which was a Democratic former police monitor. So, I mean, this was a guy who used to watch the police. This was the guy who was supposed to be getting rid of corrupt police and making sure they're doing stuff lawfully. But now he's telling a police officer, well, I looked at the case and I read your affidavit and I looked at what the DA did, but I didn't find anything wrong. It's perfectly fine to leave information out, and instruct a police officer to not give all the information and to make it seem like maybe he is guilty. So, of course, as usual in Austin, you can't get away with stuff even if you are completely within the boundaries of the law. So at this point, the grand jury indictment is still in effect, and he's going to have to actually fight this out in court. Now, the way things are going now, I'm hoping his lawyer is smart enough to try to get a change of venue. The only problem with that, he's going to have to get the judge to agree that he's going to get an unfair and impartial hearing in Austin, try to move him to another area where he can actually get a jury and a judge that will allow him to have a fair case. Now, we're talking about the DA, Jose Garza. Some people remember less than a year ago, there was a shootout in 6th Street between a group of African-American gang members and bikers in 6th Street. Now, one of the members of the African-American gang, or the African-American guys, because there was basically two primary guys, one of them got indicted and he's still waiting trial for the shooting. The other one was a 17-year-old male, which they knew shot. They have evidence that he shot at them, and he was out past his curfew, had an illegal firearm, and was intoxicated at the age of 17. But Jose Garza decided, we're not going to charge him with any crimes. We're just going to let him go. Okay, so we're just going to let this guy go past curfew while he's on 6th Street, drinking with a firearm, and he shot at people, possibly shot one of them. We're going to let this guy go. So it shows a real duality. So we're going to go after a guy who shot someone, but we know it's in self-defense, but we're going to prosecute him. But another guy, because he's underage and not white, we're going to let him go. Well, the real funny part about this is that exact same guy he did let go is now currently under investigation here in my area for selling illegal firearms out of a high school property. Isn't that interesting how that goes? How we'll take someone who's obviously a criminal and we're just going to let him go because he's of a certain skin color and because he's of a certain age group, and we don't want to prosecute those people because it makes the statistics look bad. But then they turn around and commit more crimes. The real funny part about that one even further is the fact that there is another shooting that took place here in Harker Heights, Texas, where another underage African-American male with a older or an above age African-American male shot and killed a guy at a high school. Now, they prosecuted the adult, but let the teenager go, said, well, he's young, we don't want to put him in jail for the rest of his life or ruin his life. He is also involved with the selling of stolen firearms with the aforementioned other one before now. So we now have two young gentlemen who we decided, hey, we don't want to ruin their lives, so they're now selling stolen firearms to other underage kids at a high school here in Texas. Our judicial system needs to wake up and realize it doesn't matter what skin color you are, what age you are. If you commit a crime and you do bad things, you need to be punished for it. I know people are going to call me racist for saying this, but I don't care. I got in a lot of trouble when I was young, and I got punished for it. I can't get into it because my record's expunged, but I got in trouble and I got punished for it, and it made me a better person. But as usual, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them down in the comment section.